Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our practical reservoir simulation workshop. First, we would like to introduce our company. Megaplus Oil and Gas Solution is a leading provider of geoscience services, oil and gas training, consultancy solutions that are designed to empower energy professionals and companies worldwide. We specialize in geophysical, geological, and petrophysical services such as seismic interpretation, reservoir characterization, seismic inversion, and advanced subsurface analysis. Reservoir engineering solutions such as dynamic modeling, reservoir simulation, and enhanced recovery strategies. Oil and gas training and certification, expert-led courses in petroleum geoscience, reservoir engineering, and data science applications in the energy industry. Our mission is to deliver cutting-edge insights, innovative solutions, and world-class training programs to help professionals enhance efficiency, optimize exploration and production, and drive success across the energy sector. Join us to stay updated on industry trends, upcoming training programs, and exclusive insights. Contact us for consultancy services, corporate training, or collaboration opportunities. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Engineer Amr Labib as one of our distinguished instructors for today. Engineer Amr is a reservoir engineer with more than 14 years. He has strong expertise in reservoir management, field development, planning, production optimization, reservoir estimation, and uncertainty analysis, with advanced skills in industry standard reservoir engineering and stimulation tools. He holds bachelor's and master's degrees in petroleum engineering from Suez University and has authored over 7 SPE technical publications. Dr. Amr, we can start, and for everyone, please write your questions in the chat box, and when possible, Dr. Amr will discuss them. Thank you. Dr. Amr, you're muted. If you can please unmute and we can begin the session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to Mega Plus for this opportunity. Hope that this workshop will be beneficial for the attendees and who will see later the videos. And I'm going to start to share my screen. Uh, okay. Share here. Screen. So let's start our here. Our workshop is about practical reservoir simulation, uh, and we will start the first day. But before we start to go to the agenda and all of this, for the attendees to be on the same ground, the aim of this workshop that I need from you is to get the big picture of reservoir simulation, understand the impact of static model inputs, describe the dynamic model initialization approach, define mass balance continuity equation and PDEs, understand how rock physics and fluid properties impact the history matching process, focus on the specialist's common mistakes concerning reservoir models, understand how numerical dynamic models work. So it's a journey from seismic to production in 3 days. Let us say that we have to get the overall reservoir simulation process in a nutshell. So this is the agenda of the 3 days. Today we will start with the objectives of reservoir engineers and integrations. The reservoir engineers, of course, have the major objectives that we have to know it very well and very clear. And in each objective, reservoir engineers always integrate with other departments. So in each objectives, we will see how reservoir engineers must integrate. The second, we will go through reservoir simulation overview. And finally, today, the terminology or definition of the integrated field study, and we will start with the static model overview. Tomorrow, it will be dynamic modeling workflow, reservoir simulation formulation, nonlinear and linear convergence, uh, then dynamic model initialization, and finally it will be the model initialization input, and I will start with rock physics, and the last day I will continue with the fluid properties and PVT. Then dynamic modeling, common challenge and solutions. It will be interactive, and then it will be a hint in is if someone will go through project management or a project for full field reservoir simulation, how the project could be managed, and finally it will be there will be some sort of case study to see, and the question and answers for the reservoir simulation. So during the workshop, if anyone has questions, I will let you give you the time to ask, so we can control it, the control the whole session, and in at the end of each day, the all the if anyone has a question, he can ask and I will answer. So let's start. The reservoir engineers objectives and integration. The clear objectives of reservoir engineers have to do these four things very clearly: reserves evaluation, production surveillance, production forecast, petroleum economics. That's all about reservoir engineer. So in reserves evaluation, the most department that reservoir department can integrate with is G&G, as the reserves first go as a volumetric with high uncertainty, and reservoir engineers come after the production and confirm these reserves dynamically with low uncertainty. The second thing, or the second objective: production surveillance and optimization. In production surveillance and optimization, we reservoir engineers have to monitor the wells, and if anything happened to the production or the pressure or all of this, so we have to have a solution. And in that part, the most integration will be with the production technologies, or the production engineers, production technology engineers. And in case if we have fields like water injection, gas injection, and all of that, maybe the GNG could have the share in work. So they will share work because of the complex of geology and all of that. So this is the second clear aim or second clear objective of reservoir engineering. The third one is the production forecast and production planning. And here we reservoir engineers have to integrate with the company or the government business strategy, that each company has a strategy in their production. Some companies has limits, some companies has to produce more. It will differ from company or the government to government. So to put this strategy in the production planning and to make the production forecast and give the forecast to the business units, or the to do their economics. So we will go to the fourth objective, which is the petroleum economics. In petroleum economics, we have to know clearly the production forecast or the expected production from the field, and see the pricing of this oil or gas, and then calculate or know the capex and opex, the capital budget, the capital cost, and the operating cost of this. So we have to integrate with the drilling department to see the cost of the wells, which is always the major cost in the drilling. Production facilities, we have to work with production facilities department to see also the cost, and the business unit departments. So we will have the economics of the overall project, and then we will interpret it in the to net present value. So we have the forecast as an example in 10 years, and see the overall profit or the revenue in the net present value. So this is the four clear objective of the reservoir engineers. That's why for the, and this is, I'm talking to the early careers or the students, you will find that the reservoir engineering is split, job descriptions is split into two terms. Reservoir management and reservoir study. Here, the reservoir management, you are responsible for production surveillance diagnostics, well performance, injection optimization. And here, what I mean with injection optimization, that you will see that it's not a matter of how or the amount of the water that you are going to inject, it's how you are going to inject the proper quantity, the how you are going to manage the pressure. So here's it will be a reservoir management responsibility or task. And then the pressure management strategy, you have to manage your depletion of our reservoir, well intervention planning, and updating models based on the new data. If you have a model and you have to be to make history match, so it must be updated. So it's one of the objectives of reservoir management. And the second department you will see, reservoir study. It's responsible for field development planning, history matching, reserves evaluation, PVT and equation of state studies, fluid rock behavior, and infill drilling studies, development optimization studies. It's all about reservoir study. So again, I will pick each clear objective to see the workflow in each objective. As an example, or I will start with reserves evaluation. Reserves evaluation workflow, it's obvious that the exploration or the G&G department calculate their volumetrics and the chance of success, and they get the risked and unrisked original hydrocarbon in place. So that the risked is the volumetric and the unrisked multiplied by chance of success. Then analytical model in the early field or green field that we will going to produce. We are reservoir engineer make analytical model. It depend on 1D model that using the volumetric of the GNG and make the some material balance equation to have a preliminary forecast with high uncertainty. So we now can estimate the recovery factor of this gas in place or oil in place. Then economical evaluation. After that, decide to drill. After we make our economics and see in case of success, what is the gain that going to be. And after the exploratory drilling, we have logs, we have fluid sample, we have to make the well test to see the punctuality of the reservoir or the formation and start to produce maybe at least 6 months. And after that, we will again make reservoir engineer have to make the analytical model or depend on in the empirical approach like decline curve analysis to again see depending on the production and how fluid behavior change and phase change. So we could have a material balance that could estimate the original hydrocarbon in place. So in that time, the original hydrocarbon in place will not be an input; it will be an output with low uncertainty. This is in case of homogeneous reservoir, very simple fluid, one phase. So it could be done, and it's recommended to be done using the material balance and empirical models. If I have heterogeneous reservoir, if I have complicated fluid or other complex issues in the reservoir simulation here is important. So that's why I'm writing here if needed. The second thing, here I'm trying to make an introduction and to give you the message that reservoir simulation is important in each objective in reservoir engineering and each objectives of the company or the government. So the second thing here, in the last slide, we said that production surveillance and optimization workflow. So sometimes same reservoir simulation is very important. The workflow of reservoir of production surveillance and optimization, first follow a production strategy and then monitor the behavior of the field. update our well models, like something called, we call it nodal analysis, to see if I have a depleted or a decline in a well. So it's a matter of a well, a skin around the well bore or around the perforation, or it's a matter of reservoir depletion. So if it belongs to the well, so okay, we are going to identify the skin and see how can we improve the well productivity by stimulation or anything. But if it's related to reservoir depletion, so if our reservoir is have complex structure, have complex stratigraphic deposition. So reservoir simulation here is needed, and it's important to have a decision through the field. Do I have to drill an infill wells or not? Do I have to make any other things shut off or something? So reservoir simulation here is important. The third thing that we said, that production forecast. And in production forecast, sometimes also we need a reservoir simulation. How? In pre-mature field, the objective is to perform a field exploration economical evaluation. What that? That the premature or the start on any field, or before we start, we can make, like I said, a simple material balance model that we can make a forecast. So in that time, maybe we don't need simulation, but in mature field, to be fully aware with the future of the field and development, to take a corrective actions if an actual production deviate from the production plan. Sometimes we have to make the decline curve analysis, tank modeling, to see the behavior of the field is normal or not. In that case, if it's not normal and I have a decline in the reservoir, not planned or not as forecast, so in that time, reservoir simulation is important. So I could have a justification, a good justification in terms of geology and dynamic, that the forecast is deviated or the is deviated than the real. So I had the plan must be justify where the deviation come from. And finally, in petroleum economics. And as I mentioned, that petroleum economics or field development plan, I have to get the cost that simply it will be through the drilling, surface facilities, the oil and gas treatments, like methanol per point decrease and all of that, transportation. So all of this, our tariffs, the expected OPEX. So all of this is the cost that must be identified before I go through the field development plan. And of course, if I'm going to inject water, polymers, carbon dioxide, or steam, anything. So the company revenue, or what is our revenue, is the production and the price of this production to get it in net present value. So in petroleum economics, as I said, that I have to inject like water, polymers, carbon dioxide, or something, and I need a production forecast. So in these injections, that type of injections, sometimes we need reservoir simulation, especially if we have to make a miscible reservoir miscible injection like carbon dioxide or polymers or something. So reservoir simulation here is needed to modeling the structure and the water injection invasion, or how it will affect the, or sweeping, it will affect either micro or macro, affect the production. So this an introduction about how reservoir simulation is important. But here there is someone called George Box, one of the most famous British statistician. He have a very popular quote, and this will be our quote in our journey or our 3-day workshop. He said that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So you will see in reservoir simulation, either static or dynamic, a lot of averaging and mass balance equations, and a lot of assumptions must be done, and normalization. So you will never make a model 100% right, but It must be useful. This is our target. So keep this quote when you make a model, that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So I will start why we are doing a simulation. What are the reservoir simulation? When do I have to make a reservoir simulation? And that will be in 10 minutes. And the rest of the workshop will be how I can do a reservoir simulation. So why we use simulators? I will give you an example. If I say for someone to go from France to Germany, is it applicable or not? Can we have something like that or not? Maybe people, it will never, but our sisters and sisters have done this. They go walking, but for months they can do it. But if I ask, you have to go to Germany in 2 days. Here it's impossible. And if I ask, you have to go in hours by car, it's impossible. But by airplane, it could be. This is why we use a simulator, and this is the job of simulators. Simulators is a computer that will do millions of equations and solve a lot of equations that will never be done by integrations of engineers in this short of time. So as an example, to make this this simulation, or to make this calculations from static and kriging, and you will see SGS and SAS, and then in dynamic model, the continuity equation, a lot of equations, it couldn't be happen by normal integration between engineers. We must have a huge computer to solve this in a right way and in a proper time. This is simulators. So why we use simulators? We use simulator. It's not only we use simulation because it is the only practical way to understand, predict, and optimize complex real-world system before making costly or irreversible decision. Bottom line. As an example, we use them in aerospace. So design to without crash testing. In medicine, we use simulation, drug interaction, and blood flow. In automotive, crash test, finance, risk, and portfolio forecast. In the climate, we use simulator to forecast the weather and the climate prediction. So we can't live without simulation now. This is why we make simulation. So why we also we make simulation? If we have complexity, multiple variables, we have to simulate it, like distance and time in space, or flow, or heat, or chemistry, a lot of variables. We use simulators. Prediction of future behavior. Without simulation, it will be a guesswork. So you can depend on financially, or you can depend on your decision and on a guesswork. You have to have a decision depend on a real work. Cost and risk reduction. Simulation will prevent you to make a work with trial and error. As an example, in our in oil and gas, we cannot drill wells by trial and error, because it's as an example, you can drill an offshore well, very deep water, HPHT, so it will cost more than 200 or 300 million. So you can't make it by trial and error. You have to make it on a real study. Scenario testing. So when you ask yourself, what if, it's called what if analysis. So you will go through simulation. It will answer your question. And finally, optimization. Simulations maximize performance, minimize losses, find an optimal operating condition. So simulation, you can optimize it. You can optimize your decision. Instead of paying in two wells millions, you can tens of millions. You can drill one well and enough. So simulation will answer you. So simulation in our application in reservoir, in reservoir application, you will find that it helpful in field development planning. As an example, In well count, how many wells you're going to drill, is it could be vertical or horizontal. The design of the completion, as an example, you will make a completion is 5 inch or 3 inch or 7 inch, anything. Phasing of development. So if you have a field, so you are going to split it into phases to develop in each phase. So simulation is will be very beneficial. Second, production forecast, short term and long term, of course. The plateau duration that you want and you need يعني it depends on the simulation, so you can decide the chuck size that you are going to have in your strategy. And decline behavior. Third, reservoir management. You can use it as a reservoir management, as I said, in water flood optimization. If you have a gas injection, pressure maintenance, and by water injection, of course, fluid import replacement to see how fluid is moving in our reservoir. And finally, uncertainty and risk analysis that reservoir simulation can give you P10, 15, 90 cases. You can have your sensitivity of the rock and fluid parameters that we will see later in the third day, and economic risk evaluation. So this is why we make reservoir simulation. Here, what is reservoir simulation as a definition? Reservoir simulation, numerical modeling technique used to present dynamic behavior fluid, oil and gas or water flowing, and this we call dynamic model, through porous and permeable subsurface reservoir that they call it static model over time. So reservoir simulation predict how reservoir will produce in the future and how it will respond to different development and operating strategy. It solves mass conversion, and we will see what is the meaning of mass conversion, what is the difference between mass conversion and material balance, because it's very, very, very important to highlight it. And to know that this equation is a couple of Darcy's law, relative permeability and capillary pressure, and the fluid behaviors. And we are using in reservoir simulation finite volume method. You will in any simulation, as an example, in 1D simulation, in reservoir engineers know that in well testing, or also in well testing, as an example, you will have something called finite difference method that it depends on points. But in reservoir simulation, we are depending on a volume and in a little bit uniform grid, so we are call it finite volume method, and this is an algorithm, or how it, the simulator work. And finally, in heat or thermal or all of that, we are depending on something called finite element method, and you can go and search for it. It's very important for you to understand this, and if we have time we can discuss it later. So simulation answers these four important questions. How much oil and gas can we produce? At what rate can we produce it? For how long will production be economic? What is the best development and operating strategy? We can know the reservoir simulation will must answer these questions. So the last question, when do I need reservoir simulation? You need a reservoir simulation, or reservoir simulation is mandatory. The decision is forward looking. So if you are asking what will happen if, as I said, what if, so it will answer. Second, has a complex physics. If reservoir has a complex physics like a strong aquifer, gas condensate banking, water and gas injection, simulation, the fracture, multi-layer and faulted system, all of that we must use simulation. Also, you need well by well forecast. In material balance can make well by well, and the something like Imbal or any software can do a well by well forecast. But to have an accurate, depending on the structure and depending on the property of the reservoir, so the reservoir simulation will give you a well by well forecast. So why it's important to have well by well forecast? Because of the facility sizing, flow assurance, compression in planning, if you need a compression or not in the gas, or also in the plateau duration, some strategies that you need to produce a plateau for 3 or 4 years, as an example, because the government need gas or oil and all of that. And finally, in the economics, that economics depend, as I said, in capex, offshore fields, subsea tiebacks, all of these compression projects, all of these high cost projects. So in the simulation, it's mandatory to make that to have the right decision. Or as I said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So it must be useful in that objectives in these objectives. So if could be handled, and we have to mention that if the study could be handled analytically, no need for simulation. I'm telling you, save your money and resources, because simulation need a lot of resources, need a lot of people to work and integrated with each other, and need also, of course, يعني it's computers and all of that, and processors and all of that. So if it is simple, or if it is can if the answer could be done analytically, like material balance or decline curve analysis and all of that, or and depend on the G and G experience and the and all of the, so يعني it could be handled, okay, no need for simulation. But if we have any reason or any objective that we mentioned, no, reservoir simulation is important. So here, so no need. If I have a single, this is an examples, single well, short-term production issue, very early exploration screening, data is extremely limited, so no need here for reservoir simulation. And before I will go to how we are doing reservoir simulation, there is a very simple example from a field, a real field. Here in the example, an onshore sand oil field, moderate viscosity oil, we have weak aquifer and declining pressure and rates. The question here, should we start with water injection and where? So here I have a depleted reservoir, so with weak aquifer. So do I have to make a water injection? So here's the big question. Do we need simulation model, and why? The answer is yes, depending on what I said, that yes, we need. Why simulation was needed? Because we have to predict sweep efficiency, water breakthrough through time, the number of infill wells, the incremental oil recovery, the pattern designs. Do I have to make it one by one, or a five spot, or all of that? So we have to design. So in that time, in this example, we need reservoir simulation to have a final or a clear decision. So it's very simple, that I'm going to build something called the black oil model that we will see. And then we will going to test the forecast of the producers, and then try with a peripheral injection and test and see the production that after we simulate a peripheral injection. Then we are going to make a pattern water flood and test in each phase. After that, they found that the water flood increased recovery from 22 to 35 from the original oil in place. But the early water breakthrough in some wells. So a way forward for this study, that some infill wells were relocated. So despite that, يعني the decision was taken to drill infill wells in that place. So the simulation here change the decision and optimize it, and change the location of the infill wells, and then start the phase of injection and optimize. So this is how it works, that if I need to make a decision, and the simulation, I will do my best to make my model not 100% right, but it will be useful, so it will help me in decide or modify my decision to be the best to optimize. And here I will start with how we are doing simulations. Before I will go through static and dynamic, for for students and early careers, there is a terminology very important called IFS, or integrated field study. Sometimes you will find simulation projects called integrated field study. What is integrated field study? It's a multidisciplinary workflow where all subsurface and surface discipline work together to deliver single coherent development plan. So people from different disciplines are working together to have the decision or development plan. The disciplines is geology, geophysics, petrophysics, geomodelers, And in that, you can integrate between these four disciplines and have a static model. Then reservoir engineering will go or coordinate with them with the dynamic model. And then finally, production engineers and facility engineering need to cooperate with both to have a network, something called flow assurance or network modeling, so they can optimize or see the production that will come, the new production, or depending on the model, how it will affect the whole network of the production of the field. Sometimes we need to produce, as an example, at 700 or 800 psi, and there is an exploratory successful well with 3000. So it could make a back pressure or something, so or a huge amount of liquid or something I have to handle by facility. So in that phase, network modeling is very important to assure that no back pressure will happen, that surface facility will capacity will be enough for the production, and we have to simulate it. But in this simulation, it a very different story. And finally, the economics. So this is the introduction of reservoir engineering and their objectives, and how reservoir simulation could be useful or could be used in each objective. Why we need what are the reservoir simulation process, why we need simulation, where I can do it, and how. That is the title of our workshop. So, before I go through the static model, I will start with static model. I prefer from the organizer to have a 5 minute break, if it could be, so we can take our breaths, and in anyone need a drink of coffee or something, and then we'll continue. Okay, so before we can take a break, we can if anyone has have any question, he can ask it, and then we will have a break for 5 minutes. Okay, so it's now by GMT 5.546. So we will continue at 6 in 5 minutes.
We will have 5 minutes break and I'll be back. All right, everyone, we're back after the break. You can start now.
Thanks. Back again. So, in this section, we will have an overview for static modeling. Hope that to be fine. So, static modeling workflow. So, to make static model, we have data, raw data, like seismic and time domain, well logs as an example, quad combo, wellheads, deviation survey, all data like check shots or VSP or all of this. So all of this data must be gathered and go through processing, or we have to process this data or interpret this data. So the seismic interpretation in time domain. So we will have an interpretation and to get the structure of or the anomaly map from the anomaly map or something is the stratigraphy or the channels or all of this. We have a full seismic interpretation after the attributes and the AVO analysis and all of that, and well logs interpretation, so we can have the petrophysical parameters and the net to gross ratio and the net pay and all of this, and a velocity model to convert the time to depths in the seismic from domain to time to depth and the correlation and all of that. So until here, we are talking about the conventional work for G&G, petrophysicist, geologist, the geophysicist, all of that, and each one in will have to do a job, so work in integration, so we can have a concept about the field. And here the first keyword, the conceptual model, the concept of the model. The, before we have to go to the static model, we must all agree about the concept of geology, the faulting system, the sedimentology, of our field. So when we have this and we form a concept, so we can go through static model. A static model is an integration of three models. First, I have to make a structural model. Then using this structural model as an input in fishes modeling, and then we distribute the property model. Each model of them has its own challenges and has its own points that you have to take care of and the method to do it. We will start with the structure model. In structure modeling, we have two, or we have the most essential is something called pillar gridding. But before we go to pillar gridding, there is a structure framework we have to do. Abbreviation SF in many softwares and something you could call it SF, structure framework. What is the structure framework? Structure framework is reservoir geometry. We define in structure framework the fold geometry, horizon, fold horizon intersection, and the structure topography. So the workflow here, very simple. And please, I write it down in the if in the slide. Keep it simple, clean, controlled, and realistic. In modeling, don't ever be afraid of reservoir simulation modeling. It's very simple. There is no thing called hard and easy. We have to know that there is something called I know and I don't know. Once you know, everything is clear and everything is easy. So do it very simple. Do it, make a model clean, not have a lot of folders cannot be used. Controlled that you can control all the model and to be realistic as much as you can. This slogan or this quote you have to be in your brain when you are working in reservoir simulation, whether static or dynamic. So back again in structure modeling, and structure for framework. You see here down the first step, the faulting system. This is a normal fault sticks that any seismic interpreter can do. And then convert it to a surface. And then after that, we put our interpretation or depth map, or we call it horizons, that truncated with and intersecting the faults. And then finally, we have to make the top and the base and the middle between them zones and layer. And finally, we will have the geological model. This cells is not a simulation grid cells. This we call it a structure modeling cell. And here we have to make many checks that we will talk about later, the pillar skewness and the cell volume and fault gaps and all of that. So here the very simple structure model that we have fault and top and base and middle and top and middle and base and zones and layering. But here I'm concerning about the faults. The first thing in a structure model. So in fault, we have to make structure framework or something called pillar gridding. But before we go to pillar gridding, I need you to be clear with this comparison. To make a model, you have two ways. Structure. Cartesian grid that we all know since the school, high school, or before that, of course, it's a Cartesian. The Cartesian grids is a fixed orientation. There is no rotation. The advantage, it's very simple and excellent in converging and easy to make a transmissibility calculation and all of that. It depends, as you see, it's a Cartesian grid that it's a normal cube. But in corner point grids that we needed in reservoir simulation, as you see in the picture, in corner point grids, sail faces meet at 90 degrees, but it grid may be rotated. It will follow the structure, so I have a fold gouge or a structure or something like pinch out or all of this. So the structure grid is very useful. The corner point grids is very useful in that. But if you see here, we have the corner point grid. On its edge, there is something called pillars. So our rule or our objective here in structure framework is to convert these faults that I have done in seismic interpretation to these pillars. So after I make the structure framework and put the fault sticks and put our horizon and have geological model, I will convert it to pillars, and we call it pillar gridding. So we will convert the fault sticks to pillars. And here we have another way in making a structure model. So we can make a structure or faulting system in structure modeling by two ways. First, have a lot of homework for the geophysicists to make their structure framework with a lot of work and convert it to pillar gridding. And here the pillar gridding will be very accurate, respecting the connectivity between faults, respecting the intersection and truncation with each other. But if you want make something easy or something not no, no you cannot call it easy, but something fast without structure framework and to convert the time domain towards velocity model and all of this complication in structure framework, we can put by hand manually the pillar grids. But pillar grids will not going to be most accurate as structure framework. As you see here, you can make it in 3D and you have something here like truncation not present or connection. There is no connection. So you have to be accurately make it to be intersecting with each other to confirm the transmissibility or the sealing. So you can do again a faulting system in structure model, and the most important part or the most challenging part is the faulting system to make it as in pillar gridding, either with or without structure framework. And each way we have a challenge. And then we will put after we put the pillar grids, we will put our top and base, and then we will insert the zones and layers, and we will see later. So here is the comparison between a pillar gridding without and with a structure framework. Very fast. without structure framework, we don't need a velocity model. You can divide a pillar from the top and base, generate corner point gridding, delimitation. As I said, no geological realism that this pillar grids could be not respecting the geology 100%. The truncation could be not applied and not visible by your eye. The something called non-neighbor connections, it could be not accurate, but it will be the best for early simulation screening, sector model, and any simple work that you can do fast without velocity modeling or something. Or we can make the pillar grid with structure framework. And in that structure framework, we have to build a horizon, and we have to build to convert it in the from time domain to depth domain and make velocity model. And it's best for faulted reservoir stratigraphic complexity if you are dealing with many fault and complex. So no need, you have to make a structure framework and convert the fault sticks to pillar grids. So this schematic can show you how it work. So first you will enter the data of the faults, and then make your structure framework, and finally a structure gridding or the geological model that you have. And in this structure framework, you will have the fault modeling, then convert it to pillar grid, and connecting or truncated with the skeleton, and then put the horizons and zone and layers to make your model finalized. And here the corner point grid or CPG, horizon, zone, and layers. After that, we put the faults. After we put the zones, we can split the zones to layers, depending on what. Here I write, if you have a major depositional package, if you have a high and low permeability intervals, fluid regions, or something that you have in well logs and information that you are dealing with zones, you are dealing with thin layers, and each layer has a property due to many things, due to different depositional environment, due to anything. So as a static modeler, or as in the structure modeling, you have to respect the resolution of your data coming from the wells. And the key word here is to make the minimum cells you can make it, and make it real or a useful model. So if you have, as an example, a very region, a big region that with very poor permeability and not sharing in the production, or something like shale or something, no need to make a lot of layers in that zone. One layer could be useful or benefit. But if you are talking about the zones that have the contact, zones that have a lot of geologic features with a lot of property changing, so make a lot of cells or a lot of layers in that time, because you will see in the future that these layers will convert it to grids. So your keyword is to make the minimum and also realistic. So where you must have the final layer could be near the fluid contact, around well perforation, high permeability streaks, and if you have a strong KV/KH variation, the vertical permeability and the horizontal permeability has variations. Where you can safely use the coarser layers, tight or no flowing zone, uniform property intervals, as I said. And the final thing in the structure modeling is a segmentation. You will see that sometimes we have a compartmentalization in our reservoir, that each compartment, we have reservoir early, each compartment are isolated with an independent pressure system, and independent, you will see an initialization. So it's very important in structure model to have, as I said, in layering or vertically, respecting the geology and respecting the resolution. Aerially, you have to make segments, and here we have to talk with reservoir engineers, starting from the structure model, to see if they have doubt that they are dealing from the RDT pressure points or something, they are dealing with isolated compartments. So make a useful model and from start split it into segments. So the reservoir engineers or the one that will work with property distribution or facies distribution can make filter by it and make an input in each segment. So I finished the structure model, and the tips in the structure modeling, as I said, build the structure for flow, not just for geology. It's important. Fault modeling, be selective. Of course, you have to respect the geology, but you have to also to respect the flow. How you can respect the flow, that the fault must truncate with each other 100%. The layers must be as much optimized as much as you can, and the segments also. In fault modeling, be selective, that not all models could be modeled. Be selective that you have to put the models that geologically you are sure about in the beginning, of course. Then fault sealing and transmissibility, and this is could be depend on the connectivity and truncation between faults. Avoid extreme cell geometry. What called extreme cell geometry? If you have any grid after you build your horizon and the top, and of course the layers will be parallel to the top or the middle or the base. You can decide in your grid. So you could have, if you have something like a four-way closure dip, and the dip is very steep and the layers are very steep, so you can have a twisted cell or a cell, a corner point gridding cell with very skew or not uniform at all. So you have to change it and you have to take care about by smoothing it, because it could have a very big problem. It could be a reason for a very big problem called conversion error later on. Control vertical thickness, as I said, and fluid contacts and structure consistency. This all about the structure modeling. So after we finish the structure model and see how we can make the zones and layers respecting the resolution and respecting the zones that contribute with the production or not, and the fault system and how we can make it accurately by structure framework, or we can make it very fast by pillar gridding without velocity model. We will put this geological model called geological model or structure model, and then insert the second thing, which is facies modeling. What is a facies model? Facies model is the model that respect the lithology of our reservoir. What if we have sand lenses, or like here we have a channel, like an old channel or sand loops, or and the channel have core and levee and all of this. So you have to put it in the model and you have to distribute it. And we are from the beginning, I told you that each model have their own challenges. So in the fishes modeling, also before I start in the challenge, defined the lithology, the grain size, the rock type, and all of that. The importance of fishes modeling, that we can took this fishes model to filter it and use the fishes that contribute with the production to put the most important property like porosity, net to gross ratio, water saturation, and permeability. So we are using the structure model and then put the fishes, the lithology, and the trend, and then you will see that we will insert the properties in the lithology. Our input in fishes modeling is the well data like fishes logs, gamma ray, and our interpretation and all of that. Core description, if we have any cores, can be beneficial for the fishes or lithology identification, and fishes interpretation. Also, as I said, as I mentioned, structure framework, faults and horizons, or geologic model or structure model. And from the beginning, we are okay that we have a geologic concept. Before we are going, we go through the static model, we have a geologic concept. So the classification could be lithofishes, sandstone, shale, limestone, dolomite, Or we can make a faces modeling depend on the positional faces, like the picture here. We have we have a faces model that split between channel, levee of the channel, the floodplain, the reef, and lagoon, and all of this. Or we can make it, and this is very useful in carbonate rock types. You can make your fishes model with calling each rock type 1 or 2 or 3. Why we make all of this discretization, or all of this definitions? So, because we can filter later on these features and give each feature a property. Here's an example. If I have a reservoir and this reservoir have rock type with high quality reservoir, even sandstone or something, rock type 2 with medium quality reservoir, and RT3 low, and non-reservoir like shale RT4. We will use the rock type as a filter, as I said, to give it a property. So as a simple example, I want a permeability only on good reservoir. So I will filter the grid by RT1, model a permeability, and give the permeability to this. Neither not, and I'm not going to take that to put the good permeability for rock type 3 or 2 and 4 or something. So this is an example to make the fishes model by rock type or facies or something. So here, the method, how we make this distribution. If you see here the upper picture, we have all of these wells, but we need to make a distribution for all the model. So in the cells between wells, the features that that could be identified how. First, something called upscale or discretized. After make the well logs interpretation here, we convert this interpretation that I done, like lithology, sand, and shale, to cells. So we have here in these wells cells in each well, and after that we will make some method we will talk about to, depending on this wells by weight, so we can distribute the fishes along the whole reservoir. We have two or more than one method, stochastic method in distribution. And when we talk about fishes or property, the challenge here is the way of distribution. So in structure modeling, the challenge is the connectivity, transmissibility, and sealing and layering and all of that. In fishes modeling, the aerial and vertical distribution of the fishes and property. Okay, in fishes or property modeling. So how we can make a useful model in terms of fishes and lithology, and to remember, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So we have to make assumptions, we have to make an averaging method to make this distribution. I have a method called a stochastic method called SIS, sequential indicator simulation, and I have a method called object-based modeling, that you can decide or you can put your input to give the model the trend of the channel, and he will, it's like manually, and he will go through the distribution depending on the trend that you will put. So if you don't have a trend, so you will depend on the stochastic method, the SIS or sequential indicator system. But before we go through something called a stochastic method, SIS, or Kriging, or uh, SGS Gaussian, there is 3 videos that I have linked by YouTube. I can tell you later to check it if you want. Describing in details what is the meaning of a variogram. I think that the time is not enough to put it on the screen now, but you can check it later. So you have to understand something called variograms, and the variogram is a concept that the variation of the cell will be depending on the wells by which weight is it will be, as an example, if we have five wells, each well have a porosity 0.18, 0.20, 0.30. It will calculate, the cell will calculate the distance between itself and the wells and will convert it to weight and will have an average, like arithmetic average, for the porosity or the fishes depending on the wells, the neighboring wells. So you have to see, or you have to go through the internet, search for what the meaning of variogram, the range and the cell and the nugget. So it's very easy, but you have to know. And then how can kriging could be done depending on variogram, and how Gaussian or SIS could be done depending on the variogram. If we have time, or you can contact me anytime, I can give you some videos that is very very useful to know how the statistics of distribution. Uh, Here, the SIS, it's a very normal in equation that can predict the fishes that here in the SIS we have, if as an example, if I have a sand it's 1 and it's a shale it's 0, depending on the equation it could decide the cell lithology would be what. So it's a stochastic method that I use it in distribution. This time I can talk about in details. So here, as I mentioned, the object-based facies modeling, that you give it a trend and then it will make the distribution depending on the geology that you see. After I put the fishes model, I will enter the fishes model that containing the structure model and go to property model. And here the property model will describe the special distribution of reservoir properties like porosity, water saturation, and permeability. Built after structure and fishes model, integrate well data and the statistics and geology. It provide input to reservoir simulation. So you will see in the dynamic model in that each cell must have very important parameter called transmissibility, that it depend on something called the mobility, that depend on the permeability and viscosity. So each cell must have a porosity, must have permeability, and must have the viscosity. So the property model will take here as an example this picture the fishes, and in each fishes we'll insert the porosity, permeability, and later on the fluid behavior to use it in their equation. So the input in property model will be the well log derived by petrophysical properties, an upscaled log, as I mentioned, that convert the property to a local cells in the well. Fishes model, the geological trend and constraint, and a statistical method. Then the statistical and geostatistical methods here, you can see that you can make the average porosity by mean or variance or histograms, and also again, as I mentioned, you have an homework to see in the to look for variogram and kriging and how it works to make the distribution, and something called SGS, and it's another concept that if you the Gaussian concept in general is if you have a numbers related to a function said depending on these numbers in, as an example, distance and time, it will create a lot of functions that will obey the same inputs that they have, and depending on the function it will distribute. It's something very easy, but you have to also to go through to see it, and in animation it will be very clear in the videos. So the property modeling workflow: first, data analysis converted from log to grid. The fishes control the property setup that you can filter by fishes. Use the variogram to see the variance of the cell depending on the distance between the all wells, the variance in each property, or even for lithology, and the kriging method or stochastic SGS method the distribution. It's an equation, control the distribution, and the quality control and validation to have a quality control in especially in permeability or porosity to see any significant changes is not acceptable in static model. And here we have the output. We have a 3D model property with phi, water saturation, and NTG. Multiple realization. We can make a multiple realization. What the meaning of realization? We can make a lot of runs depending on the variables like porosity from P10 to P90, probabilities from net to gross ratio, water saturation, all of that. I have to make multiple realization, and each realization will give me volume or volumetrics, so I can have a wide range of probabilities that will obey the volumes that I have. And then I will use it later on. You will see tomorrow in something called initialization to quality check the volumetrics. And last thing, the input to dynamic reservoir simulation. The static is an input, of course, dynamic reservoir simulation. Used for the static model, used for volumetric calculation, and if I have something in history matching, I can go again for the static model to make any modification and development planning. So here it's a very it's a comparison between the Kriging and the SIS and SGS. As I told you, if there is time, or you can check it the videos to see how Kriging work, and the matrices and the weight depend on the distance of the well in each grid. They also the SIS that depend also on the variogram, like rigging, and variogram, the variance of the change from the original cell that have the input, bottom line, and something called Gaussian, that it's a probability of functions that could be done, and with high uncertainty type. So here again, to recap, I have a structure model, insert to facies model. I have a structure and lithology. Then I put the property. Finally, I will put the contact and make multiple realization. So I have a volumetric calculation here. So the static model have uncertainty, go to dynamic simulation, make the history matching that we will see tomorrow and after tomorrow, and have a wide range of with uncertainty of the reserves. So here we have some quality checks I have to do in static model. Prefer to make the one who make the static model to do this quality check better than the one who will going to make the use the dynamic model to do this quality checks. First, cell volume. Be sure that negative volume, if I have something, it doesn't work like that way. If never you have a negative volume, very small volume from 1 to 5%, the average sales volume, it's not good because it's caused a tiny time steps. If I have a cell volume very small, so I can suffer from if the flow goes through more than one cell in one time step, you will see it will can cause an error. So a very large volume برضو it's not accepted because it could be have a poor resolution. So in when you make something called upscaling to average 4 or 6 cells in one cell, so it could you can miss a lot of features. So all of that you have to check in the quality check. Second thing is cell angle. So first the cell volume and then the cell angle. In cell angle, bad angles are offer. You will see that that you have a limits internal corner angle from 30 to 150. If you have an angle in the cell below 20, avoid it because it could have lead to wrong transmissibility or something. Bad angles you will find it in يعني near to steep falls, high curved horizon, poor pillar geometry, pinch house and something. So you have to quality check after you finalize the your model. The third is called aspect ratio. the longest cell side and the shortest cell side. You have in any cell, you have two sides, long side and short side. So in horizontal cells, the typical limit it will be from 20 to 50. In vertical, from 100 to 200. So in this part, in the aspect ratio, be aware of the of this ratio, so you can't have an abnormal cell volume geometry, so it could have uh, error in the flow or conversion or something. The fourth thing, phase area and transmissibility check. So you have to check the zero phase area, meaning that if you no gaps between cells, very small phase area. If you have a cell that with very small surface area, it could have something like bottleneck or something in the equations of continuity equation, you will see. So it could make some errors. Of course, any negative transmissibility, you know that you have a problem in the model. And if you have an extreme transmissibility contrast, so you have a transmissibility in the fault, as an example. So you could have a million or sudden change in transmissibility in the between faults. It could make a very it could make an errors or unconversions, or make the model run in a lot of time. Pinch house and collapsed cell. Be sure of the layer thickness, of course. The thickness changing could be must be smooth, and no isolated cells, as I mentioned. And finally, the pillar grid. Be aware of the pillars not crossing each other. Highly leaning pillars is not good, and pillar collapse at fault. It must not be collapsed. It could يعني it's recommended to have a vertical pillar or smoothed, so you don't have to. It will not cause a skewed angles or in cells, so it can make any errors in the future. And the property relating quality check, the porosity from 0 to zero point 0.4, as an example, to be aware that typical clastic, the NTG from 0 to 1, anything else could be a problem. Avoid like transmissibility, avoid the sudden change, also the permeability, avoid any jump in the permeability between cell and cell. It could get a lot of errors later in the dynamic. So what happen if these quality checks fails? If I have a problem of tiny cells, as example, so uh, I must use very small time step, and it will take a lot of time in running. Bad angles, so you have a wrong flow direction in bad angles if you have a bad angle. If you have negative volume, so you have a crash in your simulators. If you have an extreme aspect ratio, it could make non-conversions. So because of the change in the long and short size, isolated cells, it could make a trapped volume when you are producing, or when you make the dynamic model. It will cause later a trapped volume that not produced, so it will make a lot of problems later in the saturations and the how realistic the model can present the real production field. So the rule of thumb: cell angle, aspect ratio, volume ratio, negative volumes, mean thickness, minimum thickness. You have to with this number you have to check before you send the static model to the reservoir engineers to start their dynamic. And here is the recap that we done today. So we first make an example of structure model, use this structure model and distribute the facies model depending on object based that I put manual, or stochastic basis as method as SIS that you will going to make a research and come back again or ask. Then I will use these fishes to filter and put the petrophysical depending on with distribution depending on the Kriging and a method or Gaussian method. Make the volume calculation, make a lot of realization, depend on a wide range in each property. Then I have uncertainty estimation. So I have P10, P50, P90 as an example. And here I have a model static with many cells, and each cell has its own saturation, its own permeability, and the viscosity and all of that. That later on in the dynamic that is depending on something called continuity equation or mass balance equation. Darcy law is very important in this in the diffusivity equation that you use it in the flow or the equation that used in the flow in the dynamic. So it will depend on the input that I put in the static model. It's very simple. It's very clear. Make it controlled, make it easy, and make it clean. So the most important part is to know the challenge of each model, either structure, features, or property, and study well how you make your structure framework or pillar grading. Study well the method of stochastic and object-based method of distribution of features or property, so you can make a model. It will not going to be right, it's wrong, but it could be useful, so it must be useful. So I'm finished with the first day, I think in the 90 minutes, and I'm open to hear any question. And tomorrow inshallah, as I mentioned that we will go through the dynamic model overview. We will going to talk about something called mass balance equation and the nonlinear and linear convergence in very clear and brief way, because it's only 90 minutes. And then we will start the initialization and the input of the initialization in dynamic model. So I'm open for any question.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for your effort. I have more of a general question. Would you suggest any sort of a reference, like a textbook or something, or some material online that we can read or refer to so that we can, you know, sustain the information for later? Or maybe the like the presentation, is it gonna be shared somewhere or something like this?
I think Mega Plus, it will be on the YouTube channel that you have.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, so the presentation will be shared, but for if you see any reference, if you need any reference or books or something, yes, okay, noted. I will look for some books or references, and tomorrow, inshallah, or after tomorrow, I will send you.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation.
But in my يعني in what I'm using is the software, any software manual. It could be very useful for software manuals, in especially in modeling and for reservoir engineering. What's your background of Omar?
Yes, my background, I'm a senior and undergrad student studying geological engineering.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I've taken like a couple of petroleum related courses, taken two courses in sedimentology, one in petroleum geology, and another in geothermal systems.
Okay, noted. In the couple of days or tomorrow or after tomorrow, I can give you. But for this presentation, you can check the YouTube page. You will have it, and this is the my advice to look for YouTube. Uh, and to YouTube, you will find many workshops and seminars, so you can have a lot of experiences from many people. And
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
and
sorry
thank you
for
for
taking
attending
like
one.
absolutely. I thank you. One more question, like if I may take the time,
Okay.
um, like such applications, like the people who do the simulation, are these only the petroleum engineers, or probably somewhere in the career, like in the career path as a geological engineer or a like petroleum geologist or something in that sort? Are we responsible for that? If you may give me an idea, like geology related people in the sector of
Okay. In
petroleum.
the
Is um,
يعني it's usually of course you can do anything if you want, and but it's the it's a rule of thumb يعني in the market that the people who are doing the static model is geophysicist and petrophysicist and geologist and geomodeler. As for you as a reservoir geologist engineer, or as a geologist engineer, so it will be for you it will be familiar. So you can go through the static modeling. For dynamic modeling, petroleum engineer or people or chemical engineers or can do it, or may يعني it's of course it's a job of petroleum engineer, but other discipline can work. As you as a geological engineer, you have the engineering concept and you have a geological concept, and also the petroleum engineer and thermodynamics and all of that. So they can make the dynamic. It depends, يعني it depends. But before you have to go to simulation, you must have a lot of backgrounds as a GNG and thermodynamic background. So, and understand it very well, and then you will work for a simulation.
no, absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, any question again?
Yes, sir. I have a question. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
my
You're
question
welcome.
is about the stochastic modeling. I want to know, sir, like
Ah.
it's based on what I will pick my porosity three values. For example, the mean, the average, and the maximum. Like based on what I should pick those three values.
Okay, now that's why I told you that it's a very long story that need minimum 1 hour to and a lot of mathematics, but it's very, very, very simple. Please go through. You can check the YouTube or something, and you have to understand something called variogram. The variogram is the key of what you are saying. It's the key of what you are saying. The variogram, it depends on I have a video, but I need a permission from Mega Plus to from YouTube to if I could to open it, or I can give you the link and you will go through, so you can see how variogram work. And depend on the variogram, you will find something called cell, and you will put it as an input, so you can take. But this is the you must understand very well the concept of variogram, and then you will go through kriging. So if I'm sorry, but if I have a permission, I can open this video from the link.
Okay, okay. Mega Plus. Help us.
Anyway,
Sorry, Mr. I have a
uh,
question, if that's okay.
any question? But
Yes, yes.
uh, to not go through the يعني please as I mentioned go through the YouTube and tomorrow we will see but go you
Uh,
have an homework today go search for variogram you will find a very good animation and kriging it will make you understand very accurately how it works.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Then otherwise, I will go at least 1 hour writing matrices and writing algebraic equation and all of that. So it will took a lot. يعني it's another is geostatistics is a very big item that we can talk about it for 1 day or something. So any question?
yes, I have. Listen, can you hear me, please?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You mentioned about the cell angle. I think the the definition of cell angle, we have two concepts in Petra, internal angle and the cell angle. Could you please a little bit clarify on that? Thank you. What does it mean, the
The
cell angle, in your word? Thank you.
the cell angle. Sorry, share again. So you have a screening I'm sharing the screen again. If you see here the corner point grid, the cell angle. Here, imagine with me that for this corner point concept or corner point grid, if you have a cell angle here very steep, like that, okay? I can draw it or something. I have a cell angle very steep, insert. So if I have here, this angle is steep like this. So I have this one, okay? And it could be like that. So see this angle that I draw it. So here we have a steep angle, and in the other side you will have another angle with a very steep with in proper way or the facing between two cells will not going to be 100% or could make the connectivity between cells could make a lot of flow issues in the future. So this mean by cell angle. So I have to accept a range, even external or internal. So this is the answer that the cell angle means or belongs to the cell geometry, and keep it uniform and smooth as much as you can. Either or despite that you will have a very complication between the intersection or the interactions between cells. As you see here, when I made this a very bad geometry of cell, so the relation with the other cell, and instead of you have a uniform phase, you will have something like that. That you will have a very bad connection between them. So in the flow equation, you will have many problems.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, any other question?
Amber, one question. Is there any open source data available for us to build the models from scratch and try our hands on?
Yes. Okay, it depends. First, it depends on the software that you will use. And also, what I'm doing for me, or what I used to do in when I was when I started to make the models before, I depend on the research and the workflow of the manuals of the software and the YouTube. YouTube channels, you will find many people have a lot of workflow for the software that you need. Depends. So you have to write the software and the workflow. So it you will find a workflow. You will find a step-by-step procedures in the static modeling, and you will work with it in simple way, and with yourself you will have you will going to you will get an advantage after that. But first you have to go simple with the videos, and YouTube has a lot of only YouTube, yeah, a lot of videos has many software workflow. The most important part for you is to understand the concept that I'm telling you today and tomorrow. The concept behind simulation. The workflow in the software, you will find it step by step. And also we have Gemini and ChatGPT and all of that. You can write the workflow. It will give you the very, very, very accurate workflow in each model. But when you have, as an example, when you go through a software and it will ask you in the property modeling, there's something called nagging and called cell and called in the variogram. You have to understand what is that and depend on what the software will going to distribute it, and they will ask you, do I have to distributing using Gaussian as an example? So you have to. When you make this fault, if you're not understanding the concept, you can make a fault not communicated or truncated in a long way. As an example, that your colleagues or the participant ask, if I have a cell angle is very and cell geometry is very complicated, or is not smooth, or the interaction between the cells is very bad. So in that case, if you don't know the concept, you will have an errors later on when people in dynamic model going to run. So you have now be aware, or be the most important thing for you is to make to have a strong background for features, property, structure, distribution, the knowledge and the science. For the software, it's very easy. You will find it in the step by step in the software. Thank you. Or in the videos, yeah,
Thank
for
you.
software. You're welcome. Any other question? Okay, I think that here we are done, and tomorrow, inshallah, we are going to present the second day. It will be we are talking about the dynamic modeling workflow after we have the static model and the formulation behind the simulation. I will try as much as I can, and it's very simple, by the way. It's very simple math. You don't have to be an expert in mathematics. And the dynamic model initialization and the model, the input of initialization, and why initialization is a milestone and it's very important. So we tomorrow we are going to discuss it. So and if you have a question for this day, you can ask it tomorrow, no problem. And I'm here for you. Okay. So I'm done and no question. So bye bye, and tomorrow, inshallah, at the same time, we will be together. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This brings us to the end of our session. Thank you very much, Engineer Amr. It was an amazing introduction for our workshop. Tomorrow we'll continue our day 2 of the workshop at same timing. See you all tomorrow at our same timing. Thank you. Please, if you have any questions, keep them for tomorrow. We will discuss them all tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.